Right, what we're going to do now is we're going to take the front two bolts out of the mounting, loosen the back two bolts, and sit the engine back onto the prop flange so that we can work on the front face of the engine. It's easier to have it like that. So you'll see this hose over here lies inside the engine mount. So what you've got to do is you just got to pull it out of the way a little bit like that, and then move the engine mount, the engine over backwards onto the prop flange like that. Once you've got it sitting backwards like this onto the prop flange, what I like to do is just tighten up these little Allen screws here once again so that it just holds it nice and firm. Right, next thing to do, we remove these 4 coolant hoses over here from these fittings with these clamps, move them out of the way so we can get the engine suspension frame on. There might be a little bit of coolant in the hoses still from the test running at the factory, so best is to not let the hoses lie down, leave them standing up. Next thing we do is we remove this bolt over here. This is one of the suspension frame mounting points. It's a long bolt and it has a spring washer and a flat washer with it. Make sure you don't drop this flat washer in the engine. So these are the other engine mount bolts. These are the 4 engine mount bolts, and these are shims. They look like washers, but they're shims. There's 2 thick ones and 2 thin ones, which we spacer up the suspension frame with. Okay, it's quite a trick to get the suspension frame on. It actually does go on very easily. You don't have to force anything. This guy in through here. You roll this guy over until it's about there, and this chap till it's about there, and then this chap is above this pipe here, and then you quite simply just move them down like that, and there we go. It's as good as on. You get these guys out the way, you move these guys out the way here like that, pull these guys through, they come through here like that. These guys come through this little piece here. You'll notice there's a little gap over here. So that's what these spaces are for. If we take this flat washer off the long bolt, we'll leave the spring washer on, and we put Loctite onto the bolts. So we've got a thick washer down the bottom here, and we put the bolt in, line it up. Very, very important, don't strip the thread going in there. These small bolts, these M10 bolts, they go very easily into the crankcase, and if you're starting to force anything, you're stripping the thread, means a very expensive mistake. So you just put them in until they're holding in place, and then you do the next one. Next one is at the top. Now put a thin spacer up here. Put the thin spacer in. Okay, sometimes it's a little bit tricky to get them in. You just got to line them up and get the edge over. And once you get it in like that, then you can press it in place. It's a thick one, so it's a little bit more tricky, and you can just pull it in place, but you have to be very careful not to damage the threads. And we put the long bolt in here. Okay, I'm setting the torque wrench to 35 Newton meters. Also, you have to be careful when you're torquing these bolts that you don't put in to damage the cylinder heads or any part of the cylinders or anything like that. So you've got to keep it off and be very careful. And torque it. You can torque it straight up to 35 straight away. Okay, 35. Next one.